So we're back at 9% chances to make the playoffs, and that's why this loss feels more heartbreaking than it should. We had a shot, we had momentum, and we completely blew it on Thursday Night Football in Detroit. 44-30, that's the final score. And honestly, it doesn't even tell the whole story of how badly we got exposed out there. What's up, Cowboys? Welcome to the NFL Playbook Cowboys. If you're new here, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. This channel is all about breaking down everything you need to know about the Americas team. This game had a playoff atmosphere written all over it. Everyone knew what was at stake. Win this game, and suddenly you're 7-6 with a real path forward. Lose it, and you're staring down the barrel of another wasted season. And what do? We came out looking exactly like the old Cowboys. The ones who choke when the lights get bright. The ones who find ways to beat themselves before the opponent even has to try. It's like we hit every single checkbox on the how to lose a big game list. Sloppy penalties, fumbles at the worst possible times, defensive breakdowns, special teams disasters. This wasn't just a loss. This was a complete organizational failure. Let's start with the offense, because at least there were some bright spots before everything fell apart. Dak Prescott put up numbers. I'll give him that. He went 31 for 47 for 376 yards and a touchdown. On paper, that looks pretty good, right? But then you see the 2 interceptions and the fumble, and suddenly those numbers don't mean anything. The first interception came on the opening drive of the second half when we desperately needed to build momentum. Dak threw a ball that got picked off by Derek Barnes, who returned it 23 yards to set up Detroit in a perfect field position. They scored a touchdown 2 plays later, and just like that, we were down 27-9. That's the kind of momentum-killing mistake you absolutely cannot make in a game like this. And can we talk about CeeDee Lamb for a second? Because this might be the most frustrating part of the entire night. Lamb was absolutely cooking in the first half. 6 catches for 121 yards on 8 targets. He was making Detroit's secondary look foolish. Every time Dak threw it his way, he was getting open, breaking ankles, doing everything you want your number one receiver to do. Then he goes up for a ball in the end zone, tries to make a spectacular play, doesn't come down with it, and leaves the game with a concussion. Suddenly, our best offensive weapon is gone, and you could feel the entire dynamic of the game shift. Without Lamb, Detroit could focus all their attention on George Pickens, and that's when things really started to fall apart. Speaking of Pickens, we need to have an honest conversation about his performance in this game. 5 catches for 37 yards on 9 targets. That's not going to cut it out here, especially when you're supposed to be one of the superstars on this team. I've defended George all season because he's been fantastic for us. But Thursday night was a different story. He looked indifferent at times. There was a comeback route where he just jogged through it like he didn't care. On the first drive, Dak tried to hit him on a slant, and Pickens had zero interest in running over the middle. I don't know if he was intimidated by the moment or what, but that's not the player we've seen all year. Then there were the penalties. Oh man, the penalties. Pickens got called for a face mask that put us back to 1st and 25. Now, to be fair, it wasn't some malicious grab. It looked more accidental than anything, but you still can't do that in a critical moment. Then he got hit with an offensive pass interference call that was absolutely garbage. But that's a whole other conversation about the officiating in this game. The point is, when you're fighting uphill all night, you can't afford to shoot yourself in the foot with dumb mistakes. And there was even a drive late in the game where Pickens didn't play a single snap. They had Ryan Flournoy, Jonathan Mingo, and Kayvontae Turpin out there, and they actually scored a touchdown on that drive. That tells you everything you need to know about how the coaching staff felt about his effort level. Flournoy actually had himself a pretty solid game. 13 catches for 115 yards and a touchdown. That 42-yard touchdown catch in the fourth quarter at least made it interesting for a minute, and the 2-point conversion to Jake Ferguson cut it to 30-27. For about 2 minutes, I actually thought we might pull off some kind of miracle comeback. But then reality set in, and we remembered that our defense couldn't stop anybody. Brandon Aubrey was legitimately the only bright spot on this entire team. 5 field goals, including a 63-yarder that was just absurd. The man is automatic from anywhere inside 65 yards, and he might be the best kicker in football right now. But here's the thing, and I know this sounds crazy,
But I'm starting to wonder if Aubrey being so good is actually hurting us. Stay with me here. Because he's so reliable, Brian Schottenheimer thinks he can kick 55-yard field goals like they're chip shots. So instead of going for it on 4th and 3 from Detroit's 37 with less than a minute left in the half, we settle for the field goal. Sure, Aubrey makes it, but then we give Detroit the ball back with enough time to march down and kick their own field goal before halftime. That's a coaching decision that directly cost us points and momentum.
And that brings us to the coaching, which was a complete disaster from top to bottom. Schottenheimer made multiple decisions that left me scratching my head. The end-of-half management was terrible. The fourth down decisions were questionable. There was even that whole situation with the safety where Dak got sacked at the 1-yard line and we had to punt from our own end zone, instead of maybe taking the safety and kicking off with Aubrey's big leg to get better field position. I'm not saying that's definitely the right call, but it's worth discussing when you're getting destroyed in the field position battle all night. And the defense, man, where do I even start? 408 total yards allowed. Detroit averaged 7.2 yards per play. They scored touchdowns on 5 of their 12 drives, and the only real stop we got was a blocked field goal by Sam Williams. Jared Goff went 25 for 34 for 309 yards, a touchdown, and 0 interceptions. He had all day to throw, and when we did get pressure, he was getting the ball out quick to Amon-Ra St. Brown and Jamison Williams. St. Brown had 9 catches for 92 yards, and it felt like every single one of them came on 3rd down to extend drives. But the real killer was the run game. Jahmyr Gibbs ran all over us. 19 carries for 43 yards and 3 touchdowns. 3 touchdowns on the ground. That's unacceptable. David Montgomery added another 60 yards and a 35-yard touchdown run that basically broke our spirit in the second quarter. We couldn't set the edge, we couldn't fill gaps, we couldn't tackle in space. It was exactly like watching the pre-Quinnen Williams trade version of this defense, and that's the most depressing part of all. We thought we'd turned a corner after those wins against the Eagles, Chiefs, and Raiders, but it turns out we were just playing bad offenses. The moment we faced a real test, we got exposed. Matt Eberflus has to be on the hot seat after this. This is the 3rd time this season we've given up 40 or more points. The young guys like Siobhan Ravel Jr. got picked on all night, which I get, he's a rookie starting his 2nd game. But where was Trevin Diggs? He practiced all week and we're sitting him out when our playoff lives are on the line? At some point you can't be so cautious with injuries that you cost yourself games. We needed bodies out there, and we needed guys who've been in these moments before. Instead, we're throwing rookies into the fire against one of the best offenses in football. The defensive tackles got some pressure here and there. Quinnen Williams had 4 tackles, Kenny Clark had 3, and Osa Odigizua actually had a tackle for loss and was around the ball. But it wasn't enough. When you're not getting consistent pressure from your edge rushers, the interior guys can only do so much. And when Goff is getting the ball out in under 3 seconds on most plays, it doesn't matter how much pressure you're generating. He's finding the open man and moving the chains. Now let's talk about special teams, because this might have been the most embarrassing part of the entire night. Nick Sorensen should be updating his resume right now. The coverage units were an absolute joke. We had 7 kickoff returns for 176 yards. That's an average of 25 yards per return, which is fine. Detroit had 8 kickoff returns for 261 yards. That's 32.6 yards per return. They were consistently starting drives around the 40-yard line, which gave them short fields all night long. This was supposed to be a pseudo-playoff game, and we played like it was preseason. The penalties were bad, the turnovers were killers, the effort from some of our key players was questionable, and the coaching didn't put us in position to succeed. That's a recipe for getting blown out, which is exactly what happened. So where do we go from here? The math is pretty simple and pretty brutal. We're 6-13 right now, sitting at 17th in the league. Even if we win out, which means beating Vikings, Chargers, Commanders, and Giants, we only have a 46% chance of making the playoffs according to the projections. That's less than a coin flip. And let's be real, we're not winning all 4 of those games, not the way we played Thursday night. The division is basically over for us. I think we're going to learn a lot about this team over the next 10 days. Are they going to come out against Vikings ready to fight for their playoff lives, or are they going to mail it in and start thinking about next season? My gut says Schottenheimer and the coaching staff are going to prepare like we can still make a run. They're not going to tank, they're not going to give up. But I do wonder if we start seeing more of the young guys getting reps, especially on defense where we desperately need to figure out who can actually play. I'm not ready to completely give up hope yet. Stranger things have happened. We could win our next 3 or 4 games, get some help from other teams, and sneak into the playoffs. But even if that happens, what are we?
Are we a team that can make noise in January, or are we just delaying the inevitable? Based on what I saw Thursday night, I'm leaning toward the latter.